everybody. So, yesterday I was watching Cars, okay? And it's not like too enjoyable, but it was a really good movie. It's a whole movie about just racing, right? But then the racing is very little. I just wanted to rant about how they killed the franchise after this. And yes, the movies for them aren't really all that of a big deal because Cars normally just gains its money from merchandising. So, kids are gonna be buying cars, right? And Lightning McQueen looks really cool. So, they're just gonna be like, alright, I'm gonna show you what cars are. And racing car, pretty cool. Lightning McQueen's really fast. He knows how to do stuff. And I think a lot of the charm gets lost over time with Pixar, like in this movie. Because if you think about it, and I'm specifically gonna refer to Cars 3, and this is more like a rant on the Cars franchise. Because I only rewatched Cars, and I've rewatched Cars probably like 4 or 5 times. Because, it's just about this guy who gets stuck in Radiator Springs. It's not the worst to watch. Well, first things first. The 3 franchise really ruined it for me because Lightning McQueen is a loser.
McQueen is fading! McQueen is fading! Fading fast!
The second movie was kind of funny, okay? A lot of people didn't like it because there was so little race. Because, Mater took over the scene, he was a spy, and apparently, you could change your body, you could, fix up all your dents. Like, the cars can change their engines and stuff, I think, which is quite weird because I would like to think the engines are brains, right? So, yeah, people didn't like it, but then, I always understood it as being like, hey, that franchise is not Lightning McQueen, that is Cars, but for the most part, people come in for Lightning McQueen and racing. So it is understandable, and I think Pixar employees I think they thought that the story that could be told by using other cars would probably be better than how using just Lightning McQueen and racing around a circuit, because quite frankly it's a 200 lap circuit. We don't, it's not going to be totally fun for kids to be watching that. So adding a bit of James Bond style Mater was pretty decent, and it was all cool. It wasn't the best movie of the franchise. It did gross the highest in the box office. We don't care about that because it's merchandising, so I guess we can just skip box officing, okay? If you think about it, third movie is when they dug a grave. And again, not saying that box office matters for this. It did gross the lowest, around in the 300 million, where 2 was in the 500. And I think that was because the first movie gave exposure and a lot of kids bought Lightning McQueen. So when the second movie came out, parents would want to show them the movie. But then it turned out to be, quite a bore because there was very little of the favorite car they bought. Mater is a great character. It's just that he's better left to the sideline rather than the main focus. Here, I'm gonna start my full rant, okay? Firstly, you ignore the second movie and you bring in these supercars, which are just better than Lightning McQueen. So we are gonna ignore what happened in the second movie with the whole Mater thing. Some people like that. I'm like, kind of weird that you'd ignore a movie you've made. So Lightning McQueen can't upgrade, okay? So it does make sense. This whole movie was him kind of just figuring out what Doc did, trying to, be like, oh, I'm just gonna be more skilled than them if it comes down to it, because they're gonna have better engines than me, they're faster than me, I'm getting older, I want a bunch of piston cups, It's a pretty cool idea that he's chasing after Doc's legacy. But I think Doc's legacy was finished in the first movie when Doc teaches McQueen that, yeah, you may just chase the glory and the limelight, but at the end of the day, the moment you lose it all, like when you have one big crash or you have to take a season off, people just forget about you and you're gone. And this was especially highlighted when Lightning McQueen, when being lost and talking to this guy who he thought he was a friend with, I think it was Harvey, and Lightning was like, I'm so sorry, I've been lost. And the guy immediately goes, no, how can you buy this kind of publicity? It's like your friend being lost or dead didn't really matter to him. It's like, oh, you got publicity. And yeah, a lot of people didn't really care about him in the circuit leagues. And when he finishes the race with pushing Dynaco across the line because Doc had to leave his heydays behind because he couldn't finish that last race. Not because he couldn't, but people gave up on him. And Lightning McQueen didn't want the same to happen to the king. And I doubt Dynaco would have allowed that to happen, but that did show significant growth in Lightning McQueen because he would have just been like, it's my first ever Piston Cup, and he's gonna win it over Chuck. But he's, I think in that movie, he kind of also realized hey, I'm really fast, I could probably win the next cup if I need to. But this is the only chance I get to, make a friend in the league. That was a really great ending to Doc, and I think from the second movie, you don't really see Doc anymore. But you know what, I was like, that's a pretty good send-off to Doc. But in the third movie, when he's chasing after his legacy, trying to get faster, he meets up with this trainer. And then she is training other cars as, scared or, there's some reason. And the movie is pretty bad. So, like, I would say it was kind of forgettable for me. A lot of people were like, oh, I love the ending. I love the ending. I'm like, what the hell are you on about? Lightning McQueen, this whole time was just feeling behind. He was getting anxiety. He was feeling, I can't do it anymore. These cars are faster than me. And then he just slows down. It's like in the first movie when he was just thinking about the Porsche whenever he was riding around. But for him to like be giving up like that, it wasn't really nice. And I thought the whole movie was trying to lead up to him going like, don't have to win, but I will do my best and finish my own race. It's like, yeah, sometimes you may get out competed. I don't think, okay, the message of a kid's movie should be it's okay to lose. The thing is, it is okay because Lightning McQueen in the end would have lost because he couldn't really figure out how to beat those cars. And for our hero's journey, that was really sad. Imagine being the Lightning McQueen. And this whole time you're trying to figure out how to beat all these cars, and in the end you give up and you tag team the shit out of it. You just turned racing into a tag team championship where cars of different cylinders can just walk into the road like no pre-checkup, nothing. If he really wanted to win, he could have just been like, hey, you supercar, you want to like tag in for me in the middle? And then just, raced his first lap, gave it to another supercar he can find, get someone from the European circuit or something, come back and then have them finish it. Like, dude, your whole point, this whole movie was him trying to figure out how to get rid of that, like, anxiety he gets, all of that feeling of loss he gets whenever he's driving. And the fact that he gives up and gives it to someone else is just the worst for him. Again, back to the messaging. You may say it's okay to lose, but it's not okay to not finish. I think that would have been a better message. Like Lightning, he just decides he will race the best that he can, and then he does. You want to know, there's an alternate ending that I recently saw where the girl car, she gets the whole Lightning McQueen paint job, gets the Rusties, the 95s, or just, redesign with like a yellow but like reds on everything else. Make a cool looking design. It's for kids. They're going to want to play with a car. Red is a great color. Yellow, don't know as much. Maybe it can be. You just need to design it properly, not do the weird ass paint job they did with her. She takes the Lightning McQueen rod. She takes the 95, she takes the sponsor, alright? And then, she can have her own little ka-chow or, whatever the hell the new thing is gonna be. But Lightning also joins in the race under a different color. It's fine, it's just like he's changing. That'd be perfectly fine. But instead, he gives up. And that pissed me the living hell off. Because, I followed it when I was very young. It's not like I'm crying about it now because I've seen it now. It's like, I watched the original ones. I really liked it. Okay, and this was back when I was like probably like 10, maybe 8. I just kept watching it. I would rewatch it. It was really funny. I like the cars. I like the tight-knit community, and then racing. This guy's being flashy, ka-chow. They had like decent jokes here and there. It was fun. I watched the second movie. I'm like, oh, they tried to do James Bond style. Not my cup of tea. Wish it focused on something else. And then for them to do that on third, like, at least make it a proper send-off. When you're watching these movies, we are watching like heroes, okay? Like, as a kid, you're watching Lightning McQueen, you're like, oh, he's fast, he's strong, right? It's fine to give the idea that, okay, he's not as fast anymore because, he's gotten older and maybe he kind of upgrade, but he can outskill, right? But if the other cars are just faster than him, then there would be no point. Which makes sense. So maybe even outskilling wasn't enough and that could have been handled in a different way. But for him to just pass on the baton and do some weird shit was just not right. It just wasn't right. It doesn't make sense to me for the most part. He could have finished the race. The thing that in the first movie, he didn't want the OG to not finish his last race, while he himself just bowed out of it and told someone else to finish it. It goes to show that, movies pay a price for their prequel, and I feel like if they ever end up making a 4, I am not watching it anymore. I also remember I used to buy the Cars games on my Nintendo. They weren't really that fun, to be honest, but I liked this franchise once, and now it's just, we don't need to show kids that it's okay to not finish. Like, if you're gonna be in a race, don't cry in the middle of it. Finish it, even if you're last. I think that's a better message to be putting out there than saying someone else should do it for me. That is very like dependent kind of attitude. And of course, the Cars race is not a relay. And I hope people understand that. I feel like people just give up and try to explain whatever can be explained and try to say whatever good things they can sometimes for the sake of not sounding like, assholes. Because if you were like, oh, I didn't really like it, right? And they're like, oh, you just have a problem with female cars. And I'm like, no, I've already explained my position. She could have taken the baton, but I want McQueen to finish his last race. And that is it. And if you can't understand that, then you're just shilling out for Pixar.